Good.
I've been training for this. Don't fall.
Wow.
I'll just sit here.
Right. It's very exciting, but I do feel it's important. So you could just have everyone's attention. Most of you don't have laptops. I do realize this is a pretty big topic, so I'm not going to cover everything here, but this is really just to focus on major cancellations, kind of things that are unexpected, and just really how to navigate the client's expectations for refunds versus our own company policies. So really just to start off with, I think just to really hone in on that point, you really need to encourage travel insurance each and every time with your client. Because selling it now could save you lots of time and difficult maneuvering later on in the process. And it's super recommended, especially if you have older packs, especially if they've disclosed any prior medical conditions as well. I've had a few incidents where, not necessarily because you can predict these things, but clients suffering from strokes, and they tend to be, above a certain age, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Some of them didn't have travel insurance when coming into this country, so that can make things difficult later on in the process. And it's always up to the client at the end of the day, but I think we could always kind of cover our backs if we make that recommendation early on before they book their trip, and try to encourage that by email so you have it in writing that you made that recommendation. Sorry if this is coming across as blurry, but I think we're all aware of what our terms and conditions are, so I just wanted to kind of recap this. So I think you're already kind of aware of what's included on there, but really just to focus in on the point that payments for flights, cruises, and Inca Trail bookings are always non-refundable. So I know we've had a few incidences, or at least many, where we've tried to actually solicit refunds for flights, and I really have to kind of go back to this point just to be firm about the fact that we don't provide refunds for flights. They also cause a lot of headaches. It's often a long, drawn-out process where it could take up to a few months. Airlines aren't always, they don't always have the best customer service in terms of getting back to you on time. And so it often involves a lot of paperwork, and sometimes it's just not guaranteed until you get that final answer from the airline. So just with all the time involved and the confusion that it causes, we really feel it's just kind of best for you to be firm with your client about letting them know that that's non-refundable. And I know it's said on Plato for some time that LATAM is our preferred option for its flexibility around cancellations, but we're eliminating that text as well. It's a flexible airline, it's very reliable, but I think we can't be contradicting ourselves, so that's been updated. And just also for you to be aware of the cancellation fees, as you all know, if it's 45 to 22 days, that's a 40% cancellation fee. 21 to 9 days, that's 75%, and then it's 8 days or less cancellation, the cancellation fee is 100%. And then we do know that's not including the deposit amount, because the deposit is always non-refundable, so subtracting that amount to begin with. And then just some key things to keep in mind. So remember that any refund should be approved by a manager before confirming a refund or refund amount with a client. The deposit is always non-refundable, so no one ever gets 100% of their money back. Just to reiterate, our company policy is that flights are non-refundable. If they book them on their own, just advise them to contact the airlines themselves and let them know it can take as long as 3 months for refunds to be processed. If they booked with us, simply point to the terms and conditions. But if the client is insistent around this issue, you could pass this issue on to management. And then just always check for the timing of the cancellation. And just remember, we're not legally liable for giving them any more than our terms and conditions allow for. So what happens if the client becomes ill? So this applies to situations where the client wants to cancel their trip before starting it and asks about refund possibilities. So just always to go back to our T's and C's, so that will always take precedent above everything else. So never promise or advise the client a refund is a possibility. In some cases, we are often willing to make exceptions or offer travel credit. Always ensure that the client provides a medical note. It's just necessary and just to kind of make sure, it's not an excuse that they're making up as well in order to get money back. Just advise clients of the options as well. They can always rebook their trip if it's just something they need to cancel because they can't make those dates. So let them know that that's, a possibility and they have a lower risk of actually losing money in that case. So again, just to kind of elaborate, if the client becomes ill, so applying to situations when the client wants to cancel their trip before starting it. So just some questions to kind of clarify ahead of time. I know these sound obvious, but just to really tick all the boxes, just, check if the group has insurance. Yes, that will kind of save you lots of time when thinking about scrambling around for refunds. You'll probably be less concerned about checking with each and every provider whether they could provide money back because it kind of takes care of that work for you. If the answer is no, also ask yourself, should the group cancel with less than 45 days to travel? Yes, then you're also not liable to get them a full refund according to our terms and conditions. If the answers are no to both of the above, you can advise the client that you will check with providers, but it's never guaranteed a refund will be provided. Also let them know that it takes time. So oftentimes I think it's taken up to a few weeks, like even past a full month to kind of get all the refunds processed. Yeah.
So if someone has travel insurance and they cancel, then they just get a refund from their insurance, nothing from us?
That's where it becomes a little bit fuzzy. I would say if the providers are giving us a refund, you can feel free to offer some of that to the client.
Okay.
But in most cases, it's best for them just to provide a letter of proof of the services they purchased so they can solicit that with their travel insurance company. And just to look at one case study, really sorry you can't really read the writing on there clearly, but basically around this, the client's partner canceled a trip, so this was a couple. The client suffered a medical condition, so he had a stroke prior to travel, and this was with less than 8 days left to travel. The client luckily had travel insurance in this case, but at that moment, the client's partner decided to cancel even though the travel advisor offered to rebook services at a later time. Then just instead of providing a direct refund for any of the services, the travel advisor offered credit to this client. And that was the right thing to do. The TA just followed all the needed steps. I had the example there, which unfortunately you can't see clearly, but the client just was disappointed with the response. We offered him a travel credit. It wasn't a direct refund, and he was obviously looking to see if he could get some of his services refunded. So what I did was basically, and I think what you should do in every response, really, I sent him this long drawn-out response. Hopefully you'll be able to read this clearly when I send you guys a copy of the presentation. But really, I'm thinking about a response that really goes back to affirming the policies we have in place. And that doesn't mean you don't have to be empathetic about their situation, but you really have to be detailed in pointing them to the terms and conditions. As you know from the final procedures email, within that booking form, it clearly tells them this, making that first payment means that you agree to our terms and conditions. So that's already a legally binding agreement. And I think a lot of clients just forget about that. Thank you, Pachi. 20/20 vision.
Luxury.
Well, I could just go back to what the client had originally wrote, where he just said, super disappointed, and I'll tell other people not to use your travel services. I make products for Walmart, Target, Ross stores, and other major retailers, and have related my experience with your company to theirs. So just really negative, just didn't take that original offer very well. So my response was just really to be empathetic, really pointing to how our terms and conditions actually work, and also remind him that we took a lot of actions because his was an exceptional case. He suffered like a very unfortunate medical condition, and we did actually endeavor to see if we could get any of those services refunded. And we actually didn't have to do that, like according to our terms and conditions, because the cancellation was made with less than 8 days. But so it's just reiterating that we actually did make an effort there. But it's really to go back to the firm defense of our terms. We wouldn't be able to provide a refund if there was due to a weather issue, sickness or other unforeseen circumstances. And really no other travel company would be able to do that as well. So it's not like we're just taking it out on him personally, because any business would fall apart if they were to offer refunds for these types of late cancellations. So following that, the client's partner wrote back and she kind of responded more positively in asking for support so she could make her insurance claim. That should be it. And then just to look at another case study, just kind of going back to the issue around flights, this ended up causing a drawn-out refund process, which is why we're really recommending to, not try to solicit refunds for flights. So again, the client canceled with less than 8 days to go until the trip. The client had suffered a stroke. The client was informed by the TA in this instance that a flight refund might be possible, and also contacted several providers to ask about refunds. 1 month had passed and there was no word on the flight refund. 2 months had passed, still no word, and the client was getting impatient. 3 months had passed, the client was still asking, and emails were starting to just get tenser. And also, unfortunately, the client did not have travel insurance, and I believe she was over 65, if not over 70 years of age as well. So this is a client that really should have been traveling with or should have purchased travel insurance. So at some point, like after the 3-month period, the client checks in to see like what's been happening with her refund, because she has that expectation in mind that she should be receiving money. So I kind of helped out in this situation. I just kind of said like, well, I guess first of all, just like the whole idea of indicating refunds are possible automatically puts us in a firefighting position. So when we can't follow through on that guarantee in a timely manner, it kind of makes the client, or it sets up the situation for it to kind of get tenser. So the client replies back to me. And again, like she's just building up her argument more. So kind of a long refund process encourages your client to really demand more accountability. So she started asking for a cost breakdown and contacts for providers, because like I think it had taken us a long time just to be firm about what refunds we could provide and what we couldn't. And really, this is just to kind of summarize that this could all be avoided if you just kind of follow our company policies and are kind of, strict with that from the beginning. It'll avoid you a lot of this extra work. So again, like just had to go back to really explaining how our terms and conditions work. And really, we had helped to solicit a lot of refunds, and we ended up providing this client a pretty large refund because her case was also exceptional. But also to reiterate the fact that our terms are standard for the industry, and we weren't like able to provide her, a full refund for a complete package. So it's unfortunate it took quite some time for that message to get through to the client. So just thinking about what to do, I know it's really tempting to want to help out the client. A lot of times it's not their fault. It's the unfortunate if like any one of us were to suffer like from some sort of emergency or medical condition, we've spent a lot of money and we couldn't even go on that trip. But, you also just need to be careful about never indicating during the process if that refund is guaranteed or even likely. And it's really just best to even not specifically mention airline refunds at all unless they specifically ask. And terms and conditions are there to alleviate the need for you just to overthink the situation. If the client is not entitled to any sort of refund, but you receive refunds from providers, speak to a manager and we'll help you decide on a credit amount in that case. And a refund process should really never take more than a few weeks. So checking with the key providers and then processing this via finance should never take more than, I would say up to a month to kind of process through. And again, just be transparent with your client. Like, don't overpromise them something when you're not even sure yourself of when things can be delivered.
Monique, you said it was Inca Trail flights and cruises that get automatic no refunds.
Mm-hmm.
Cruises too.
Any questions?
It's more of a comment and a request, actually. I know it's really important for us to encourage our clients to book with travel insurance, also with a preferred method. I was wondering if it would be possible in the future to do a module on best methods to sell both of those things,
Sure.
just so that we have a better, I don't know.
Yeah. Because I can understand it's probably like difficult. You don't want to like scare them, being like something could definitely go wrong and you could lose all your money. Yeah. All right, that's fair enough.
But also, a lot of our clients prefer paying with credit card because they do get that free travel insurance
Through their
credit card. Yes,
Yes.
and I personally, I've been encouraging clients to pay with their credit card to get that free travel insurance. But then I lose money, so we need to find a middle ground between those two things.
That kind of ties into what I was going to say too. So if you started this with encouraging us to encourage people to book travel insurance, and I kind of recently, at least for me, figured out that if they pay that via credit card, that really takes a hit on us because we only make commission on $15 per person. So, and especially the older you are, generally the more expensive your travel insurance is. So if you have someone who's paying like many thousands of dollars of travel insurance, and that's going to, like 1%, that comes out, that in theory can come out of our commission. So you can lose a lot of your commission just on selling travel insurance. So if we could, I don't know if management's talked about this, but like reviewing the idea of taking that out of our credit card usage, because it's really a deterrent to selling it, because it can, there's like no payoff. Like it's just such a discrepancy of like what we'll have to pay to receive that credit card payment and what like tiny commission we get from it. So I don't know if that's something that can be.
The incentive is in the commission, though.
Because the demographic of our clients are older.
Right.
So that payment is going to be larger. As if it was a 30-year-old, which we do get once in a while, but it's definitely less than the older clients that you're talking about, that need to pay hundreds of dollars for insurance.
Okay.
Also, I want to mention that you don't earn $15 for the insurance.
Right.
Just to make clear, you earn a part of the commission, the same percentage of that amount. That $15 goes to your total commission amount. That's all.
I think that's
Right.
Devin's point. That
So
just
we
came
make
like to our notice,
6%
so we
on
realized
$15, which is
Yeah,
gotta be
that
more
is
than the
less.
1% of the credit card charge for it. So that's what I'm trying to point out. Like it's super.
Okay.
It's not like 1% of 6%. It's it's hard to talk about the numbers, but if you like look at it, you lose.
Wait, if clients book travel insurance with us?
If they
With
pay for
credit
travel
card.
insurance with credit card, that's gonna up your credit card usage,
Okay,
and
seriously.
I think
like majority of the time, that's gonna be more than the commission you're making on.
I didn't
On
thought we didn't
insurance.
make commission on
You make
insurance.
6% on
it goes into your total
$15 per
package cost, so
person.
you
No,
make
it's-
6%.
I think that a solution would be we don't count the insurance payments.
Okay.
Right.
We
Up to-
pay just the
Oh my
amount
gosh.
of the insurance should not be counted.
But we need to review that as a company in general. Because, like, for example, I meant to do this morning, was forward an email that I got from a client. I convinced her to book with our preferred payment methods. It took weeks to get the check. It was super stressful for her. She's threatening not to make her final payment until she gets a travel program. It's like the whole process is just kind of like long and shady to her. But her point in her email was like, this is super archaic. I don't even own a checkbook. Like, for me to go and get a check to mail to you guys and like,
She didn't want to do a direct deposit.
there was something with her bank, the way it worked, that she couldn't just take. She wanted to write a check and she couldn't just go and deposit. I'm not really sure what happened. I don't understand it, but it was taking forever, and it was just proof again that it's inconvenient for clients to go through all of this when they can make a credit card payment and get travel insurance and just be done with it. You know what I mean? So it's like really something that I know Lindsay's working on it, but it's something we have to like do something about. It's like really stressful for us, you know.
This is included with the ACH.
HCH.
No, I think she had a lot of issues trying to.
Oh Oh no, that was another one. That was an Australian client, but that was like she's from Australia, so she didn't have a choice. But
Okay. No.
yeah, it's
Definitely taking that into mind. It's always just that 3% fee that we always need to be careful of because that takes a hit.
right. Like we're a business. When we go to the supermarket, I don't pay for using my credit card. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to pay the fee for buying my groceries with my credit card because it's a business that I don't know.
Okay. No, we're gonna take all of this feedback into mind. In general, are there any other barriers you find to trying to sell travel insurance?
Can I put no? I think maybe we being clear on our booking form. Like I think it's automatically checked because sometimes it comes through as I want to purchase through Latin America for less,
Yeah.
which does point us to like email them, but they're like, oh, I didn't even notice to check that. Sorry, no, I have it through my credit card company or whatever. But maybe there is a good statement to put in like the importance of travel insurance, and so they understand and not making it automatic. Like I'm booking a travel Latin America for less because there's also been issues where people think that means it comes with travel insurance.
Yeah, like some people.
Because I've had
think
that
it's
question
included.
before as well. So looking at the booking form, making sure that it's like clear it's not included, and if you want it, how important it is. Well, because what I've been doing, so once we find out we don't get really, it goes into our like usage for credit cards and everything. I've just been sending people links to iTravel Insurance and book it yourself. Because when it comes to Canadians, when we do it through any other, what's the other company? They give it to them in Canadian dollars, so I have to charge them the US dollars and then back and forth. Like it's just better for them to pay directly to these companies that deal with like insurance. I mean, it's super easy for them to put it in. I give them the quote and I just send the link. You can pay directly here and like work with them directly. It might be easier for you because then it just helps at the end of the day. So that's what I've been doing.
Bringing up the booking information form too. This is not on relevant to the module, but on the booking form, the clients really get confused on like single room, twin room, family room, triple room. Like they'll all have a couple, and I know they're a married couple. They've told me like my husband and I are traveling, and they'll put like 2 single rooms. Like maybe we could figure out, because that's confusing when we do have 2 friends, to have to be like, are these 2 friends a couple? Like would you like 1 bed? Would you like 2 beds? And then I have to ask on the phone, you know, and it's like
I think we
exactly-
can organize,
I mean,
yeah,
it says
probably like a whole another session on the booking
Yeah.
form. Like I don't think we have enough
Just
time
throwing
to
that out
cover
there.
this stuff now, so we'll address this.
So yeah, back to the insurance. I think in practice it's best to bring it up as early as possible. So maybe with our initial itineraries that do we have something in the initial itinerary template that
Well,
says
in
something?
the
It's
included
included.
section, there's like not included travel insurance.
Oh,
Ask
yeah.
for a quote. Maybe we can highlight that.
I think maybe we just
somehow.
add it to our initial itinerary templates too, like the emails, because people tend to read the emails more than do scroll to the very bottom and read all the things at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, we
But
have
I
the
also
bullet
want the
points,
price.
like the bullet points that we have that are like this
Yeah.
many days, this date. It could be bullet point instead of like, I think the flights bullet point that we have now is somewhat relevant and not like somewhat misleading, honestly. But maybe we could replace that with saying, like, have a link, have a little sentence with a link or a hyperlink to the iTravel Insured website, or maybe a link to I don't know, like the travel insurance brochure, so that they can have access to that immediately, and then it opens the conversation from the get-go.
Okay.
But then I think that kind of adds on to you asking before for a module on just how to sell it. It's also important because I get a lot of people being like, "Oh, travel insurance, like, how much is that?" And I'm like, "Well, I need your age and your place, and like your state of residence, and when you're gonna pay, and when you're gonna travel."
And then
And then they ask for it, and then I also have to be like, "Also, this price can change depending on when you book your trip, when you travel, and blah blah." There's so many caveats. So like,
but when we
I would
do
really
that
like
too,
some
it's like they
advice on
expect
the best way
us
to do
to be in charge of the insurance. Like they ask me questions about the policy, and I'm like, I don't know, read it. And then I screenshot it and send it to them, and they ask me the same question, and I'm like, well, read it. Like I just screenshotted it for you. Like if you
I
can't,
don't know more than what's written
like
here.
I know exactly what you know by reading this, you know. So like maybe I do agree. Like just giving them the link, and because it can change, like Devin's saying, because all of these factors, and it's a good idea in the initial template. Just
Okay,
like
something to consider.
get
Maybe
insurance, but
something
But between
do it
Adam
now.
and Bert's
Yeah.
idea to just send them to
Basically, just sending it off of us
and-
because I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's more work on a lot of people, and we don't have the answers to questions, and it takes more work to ask. I'm
Right.
chatting, having to screenshot what they're telling me, and all these other things.
Yeah,
It's like,
having Liz
they are an insurance
call, and
company.
it's like they can call. Why have Liz call when they can call? Just so Liz can send it back to me, so I can retype what she says to type to them. Like,
Okay. Good feedback, people. All
Touchy
right.
subject, touchy
Thank
subject.
Yeah.
It's good. There's a lot of work to be done on this area.
The
So
ultimate benefit is that we're providing a better experience for our clients when they have travel insurance and they have it.
nice,
Great job, Rick.
nice wrap up.
That's what we're doing this for.
All
We
right.
get terms and conditions.
Any
I
other
think we got the terms and
questions, or are we
conditions.
good?
We're good.
Good. Great.
Mike.
Thank you.
Come on. Come on. Oh my. Is your wrist okay?
Hurting.
Ow.
Are you okay?
I definitely thought your shirt said sexy until right
No, definitely not.